William Edward Forster PC, FRS was an English industrialist, philanthropist and Liberal Party statesman. Early life. Born to William and Anne Forster, Quaker parents at Bradpole, near Bridport in Dorset, Forster was educated at the Quaker school at Tottenham, where his father's family had long been settled, and on leaving school he was put into business. He declined to enter a brewery and became involved in woolen manufacture in Burley in Wharfdale, Yorkshire. In 1850 he married Jane Martha, eldest daughter of Dr. Thomas Annell. She was not a Quaker, and Forster was formally read out of meeting for marrying her, but the friends who were commissioned to announce the sentence shook hands and stayed to luncheon. Forster thereafter ranked himself as a member of the Church of England. The Forsters had no natural children, but when Mrs. Forster's brother, W. D. Arnold, died in 1859, leaving 4 orphans, the Forsters adopted them as their own. One of the children was H. O. Arnold Forster, a Liberal Unionist Member of Parliament, who eventually became a member of Balfour's cabinet. Another was Florence Arnold Forster, who wrote a journal about family life in politics in the 1880s. The youngest child, Frances, compiled the first systematic study of English church dedications, published in 1899 as Studies in English Church Dedications, or England's patron saints. William Forster became known as a practical philanthropist. In 1846–47, he accompanied his father to Ireland as distributor of the Friends Relief Fund for the famine in Connemara, and the state of the country made a deep impression on him. He began to take an active part in public affairs by speaking and lecturing. Political career. In 1859, Forster stood as Liberal candidate for Leeds, but lost. He was highly esteemed in the West Riding, and in 1861 was returned unopposed for Bradford. He was returned again in 1865 and in 1868. He took a prominent part in Parliament in the debates on the American Civil War, and in 1865 was made Under Secretary of State for the Colonies in Lord John Russell's ministry. It was then that he first became a prominent advocate of imperial federation. In 1866, his attitude on parliamentary reform attracted attention. Directly after the Reform Bill had passed, Forster and Edward Cardwell brought in education bills in 1867 and 1868. In 1868, when the Liberal Party returned to office, Forster was appointed Vice President of the Council, with the duty of preparing a government measure for national education. The Elementary Education Bill was introduced on 17 February 1870 and school boards were set up with elected representatives the same year where possible. The religious difficulty at once came to the front. The Manchester Education Union and the National Education League, Birmingham Education League, had already formulated in the provinces the two opposing theories, the former standing for the preservation of denominational interests, the latter advocating secular rate-aided education as the only means of protecting non-conformity against the Church. The dissenters were not satisfied with Forster's conscience clause as contained in the bill, and they regarded him, the ex-Quaker, as a deserter from their own side. They resented the 25th clause permitting school boards to pay the fees of needy children at denominational schools out of the rates, as an insidious attack on their interests. By the 14th of March, at the second reading, the controversy had assumed threatening proportions, and George Dixon, the Liberal member for Birmingham and chairman of the National Education League, moved an amendment, the effect of which was to prohibit all religious education in board schools. The government made its rejection a question of confidence, and the amendment was withdrawn, but the result was the insertion of the Cowper Temple clause as a compromise before the bill passed. The Bill of 1870, imperfect as it was, established at last some approach approach to a system of national education in England. Forster's next important work was in passing the Ballot Act 1872. In 1874, he was again returned for Bradford. In 1875, when Gladstone retired, Forster was strongly supported for the leadership of the Liberal Party, but declined to be nominated. In the same year he was elected to the Royal Society, and made Lord Rector of Aberdeen University. In 1876, when the Eastern question was looming, he visited Serbia and Turkey, and his subsequent speeches on the subject were marked by moderation. On Gladstone's return to office in 1880, he was made Chief Secretary for Ireland. He carried the Compensation for Disturbance Bill through the Commons, only to see it thrown out in the Lords. On the 24th of January 1881, he introduced a coercion bill in the House of Commons, to deal with the growth of the Land League, and in the course of his speech declared it to be the most painful duty he had ever had to perform. The bill passed, among its provisions being one enabling the Irish government to arrest without trial persons reasonably suspected of crime and conspiracy. The Irish party used every opportunity to oppose the act, and Forster was kept constantly on the move between Dublin and London, conducting his campaign and defending it in the House of Commons. He was nicknamed Buckshot by the nationalist press on the supposition that he had ordered its use by the police when firing on a crowd. On the 13th of October, Charles Stewart Parnell was arrested, and soon after the Land League was proclaimed. For that time Forster's life was in danger, and he had to be escorted by mounted police in Dublin. Several plans to murder him were frustrated by the merest accidents. On the 2nd of May 1882, Gladstone announced that the government intended to release Parnell and his fellow prisoners from Kilmainham jail, and that both Lord Cowper Temple and Forster had in consequence resigned. On the following Saturday, Forster's successor, Lord Frederick Cavendish, was murdered in Phoenix Park, Dublin. During the remaining years of his life, Forster's political record covered various interesting subjects, but his efforts in Ireland threw them all into shadow. He died on the eve of the introduction of the first Home Rule Bill, which he opposed. In popular culture, Forster is referred to as Buckshot in the Irish folk song Monto, made famous by the Dubliners, and in Andy Irvine's song Forgotten Hero about Michael Davitt Memorial. There is a memorial to him in his home village of Bradpearl.